I just can't imagine the mental gymnastics it takes to believe what somebody else says about you more than your own experience. Actually, I can't say that. I can't say that because I grew up with the 80s and 90s media and how they characterize black people. So, okay, fair enough. Hey, shout out to all of our subscribers and members here on the channel. My name is Reese Waters, and I'm troubled. I will vote for Donald Trump. I will vote.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Well, there's a lot of news coming out of the White House. One item is President Trump's decision to revoke temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans. A decision met with controversy and a passionate response from the local community.
Now, let me first say that somebody needs to talk to Congresswoman Maria Salazar, you know, the woman who asked Trump not to deport Cubans, Haitians, Venezuelan, and Nicaraguans specifically.
Maria Salazar, a Republican congresswoman who openly supported Trump, is now asking him to not deport Haitians, Cubans, Venezuelans, and Nicaraguans. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, however, Trump signed an executive order which killed the process for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. This process allowed individuals from those respective four countries, Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, to come into the United States and work legally should they have a US-backed sponsor and pass a background check. Well, now Maria is trying to protect the Cubans, Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, and Haitians that she actively voted against by asking Trump to please not deport them. Guess she didn't think that the leopards would eat her face this quick.
Now, I addressed that in a past video, just how absurd it was. We're not talking about documentation or legal status. We're not talking about criminality. We're talking about ethnicity for the right to stay, just in case you thought there was any kind of business that they were trying to stand on. Let's see how we got here.
Laura.
Well, some Venezuelans say they feel betrayed by the Trump administration, and they want to make it clear the majority of Venezuelans are not criminals.
And good people, I pay my taxes, I follow the rules.
Alvaro Duran is a TPS recipient. He's in the process of obtaining a green card because he's married to a U.S. citizen. However, his mother and siblings are now in limbo.
Go back to Venezuela is not an option.
Now, let me just stop us right here. The assertion that we are not criminals. That's actually something that we've seen and discussed right here before.
In what way do you think they're different?
The people that are coming here are the criminals, you know? The ones that did something bad in their country, they're running away from their law.
Despite having close family members who are undocumented,
migrant invasion.
they don't believe they'll end up in Trump's crosshairs. When you hear Trump promise mass deportations, do you worry about them?
Yes and no. Because the ones that I know, they're doing good. They're not breaking any law.
I just can't imagine the logic that would say, well, I'm not a criminal, and the people that I'm around in my community, because we're talking about people that are settled here and are engaged in commerce and pay taxes and things like that, I'm not a criminal. The people I see are not criminals, but I'm going to believe the crime wave that he's telling me is happening in my own community. I'm going to believe what he's saying about me more than my own experience. That will be like me coming back from the National Mall and hearing Donald Trump talk about how it's on fire and believing it's actually on fire. Wait a minute. Are they still doing fireworks over there? Okay, I can see, maybe I can see the confusion there. I just can't imagine the mental gymnastics it takes to believe what somebody else says about you more than your own experience. Actually, I can't say that. I can't say that because I grew up with the 80s and 90s media and how they characterize black people. So, okay, fair enough.
Go back to Venezuela is not an option.
Not an option for hundreds of thousands of people who say they may face jail time or retaliation for speaking out against the Maduro regime that remains in power. In a TPS termination notice, DHS said in Venezuela there are notable improvements in several areas such as the economy, public health, and crime that allow for these nationals to be safely returned to their home country.
Conditions have not changed. Actually have getting worse.
At a press conference in Doral Monday, Venezuelan Americans denounced the Trump administration and South Florida Republicans.
More than betrayed. Beyond betrayed. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign, the elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that it was not going to touch the documented people.
Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more meat on the story now. These aren't just Venezuelans, these are Venezuelans for Trump. You know, the people that we saw dancing at the beginning. So he told you he wasn't going to touch the documented people. So if I just brush past all of the white nationalism and all of the white supremacy that was infused in his campaign, if I just put that aside for a moment, how did the discussion about the Haitians go? How did that go? Every time the Haitians came up, right, and people would say, yeah, but these are people that are here legally, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump would challenge the law that they used to get here. So basically, they were challenging people that were here legally by virtue of how they felt and what they thought of the law. You saw that and still felt comfortable because you were documented. And that's after I ignore all the white nationalism. So it's just a coincidence that all these white nationalist groups have lined up behind Trump and the MAGA movement.
We are following breaking news. Neo-Nazis bring their message to a busy spot along I-75.
Yeah, demonstrators and a banner were both spotted on an overpass between Evendale and the historically black village of Lincoln Heights.
It's just a coincidence that Project 2025 outlines repainting the country and how to do it step by step. It's just a coincidence that they challenge the legality of other immigrants and have projected criminality onto them where none exists. Even if I go by what the first gentleman said, talking about how he's not a criminal, they weren't criminals in Springfield either.
I didn't think the suspension of TPS was warranted at this time. Venezuela certainly is not a safer place today than it was when TPS was issued. And so I'm not in favor of everything that the Trump administration has done.
On Friday, Jimenez sent a letter to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem urging her to make sure law-abiding Venezuelans are not unjustly penalized.
We need to focus, and this administration needs to focus on putting out the fire, which is getting rid of the Maduro, the illegitimate Maduro regime.
And one group of Venezuelan TPS holders will see their protections expire this April. Another group will likely see those protections expire come September.
Now, here is where my heart goes out to you, because I can't imagine having my future and the future of my family dependent upon Kristi Noem. Yeah, that Kristi Noem.
Kristi Noem is hitting back at the firestorm raging over her shooting her dog to death.
She attacked me, and it was a hard decision.
The South Dakota governor tells Sean Hannity she had to put her dog Cricket down after the animal ate the neighbor's chickens and tried to bite her.
And I had a choice between keeping my small children and other people safe or a dangerous animal, and I chose the safety of my children.
Noem first made the revelation in her new autobiography, No Going Back.
We want to talk about a lot of the topics that you address in the book, but the book is called No Going Back, but it sounds like the publisher, Center Street, is going back on a couple of the details in the book.
Oh, I don't believe so.
Specifically, when you write in the book, I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un I'm sure he underestimated me. That, as I understand, is now being removed from the book at your request.
Yes, when I became aware of that, we changed the content, and the future editions will be adjusted. And, I appreciate that. I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I should not have put that anecdote in the book. And at my request, they have removed it.
That specific meeting didn't happen?
I'm saying that I'm not talking about that meeting. I'm not talking about my meetings with world leaders.
But you
there's
do
some
talk
that are
about
in the
meetings
book.
with world leaders.
There's some that are in the book, and then there's some that's not in the book. Many
But why
of them,
are there
actually.
two specific mentions of meeting Kim Jong-un and talking about him, and a specific memory? I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. Did you tell your ghostwriter to write that?
I've specifically have worked on policy for over 30 years. And over that time, I have traveled around the world, and I have met with leaders around the world. And that anecdote, I've asked them to change the content, and it will be removed.
It's a simple question. Did you or did you not meet with Kim Jong-un?
That's the answer that I have for you, is that it will be adjusted, and as soon as I became aware of it, that content was removed.
Even if she tells you you safe today, that don't mean you safe tomorrow. Or even today. Now let's go dig in a little bit deeper. Venezuelan Americans have every right to feel betrayed by Donald Trump. Betrayed, we feel more than betrayed, Adelis Farrow, executive director of the Venezuelan American Caucus, said Monday in response to the news that President Donald Trump's administration is ending temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans in this country. Venezuelan Americans who voted for Trump in November must especially be feeling used. Yes. Farrow's frustration was shared by 3 South Florida Republican lawmakers, Representative Carlos Jimenez, Mario Diaz-Balart, and Maria Elvira Salazar, who I referenced already. In a rare public break from Trump, warned that terminating TPS would be disastrous and argued that most Venezuelans in the U.S. have integrated into our communities and respected our laws and contributing to the prosperity of our great country. Now, is that just the case with Venezuelans? Is it just Venezuelans that have integrated into the country and contributed to the prosperity of the United States? Because these other groups have also integrated and have contributed to the prosperity of the United States, but they were targeted, very directly targeted. And you saw that. And that was fine. But now the justification is we have integrated and we contribute to the prosperity. In Doral, Florida, where 40% of the population has roots in Venezuela, Trump won more than 60% of the Latino vote, contributing to the Republican Party's steady gains among South Florida's Latino electorate. It almost sounds like the more he ratcheted up the anti-immigrant and anti-migrant rhetoric, the more they supported him. It feels a little too on the nose. And I will also see to you this. If you wanted to say that, Donald Trump, because I've heard it said, oh, well, Donald Trump isn't gonna do anything about immigrants because he's surrounded by immigrants. He married an immigrant. There's only one kind of immigrant that Donald Trump has always been okay with. No, I don't mean women. I don't mean women. It was a little bit more broad than that. And we see exactly that with this news about South Africa. And oh yeah, we're going to talk about that one. But now that Trump's back in power, thanks in part to the Latino vote, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem tied TPS to crime and gang activity. The TPS program has been abused and it doesn't have integrity right now, Noem said on NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday. Folks from Venezuela that have come into this country are members of the TDA. Venezuela purposely emptied out their prisons, emptied out their mental health facilities, and sent them to the United States of America. Now, that article starts with now that Trump is back in power, but That sounds a lot like what I heard last year. Emptying out prisons, emptying out mental institutions. Yeah, those are things that he said before, but yet he gained support in your community. TDA is a transnational criminal gang that originated in Venezuela in recent years, has expanded into the U.S. Trump and his allies have repeatedly mentioned the group to justify hardline immigration policies, but Farrell noted just about 600 TPS recipients have been connected to TDA, just 0.04% of our community. Well, it was less than that percent Haitians that were connected to eating dogs and cats, but they sure got up there and repeated that, and y'all heard that, and we're fine with it. We are not here because we came as tourists. We are here because we got kicked out from our country because there's a cruel dictatorship in Venezuela, Farrell said in Monday's news conference, referring to Nicolas Maduro's government. Jimenez, Diaz-Balart, and Salazar, in a joint statement from last week, reaffirmed their opposition to Maduro and, despite echoing Trump's rhetoric about TDA, made it clear that it is still not safe for many to return and vowed to do everything possible to ensure that those seeking freedom from persecution and oppression are protected. Now, here's an interesting scenario, because you outline the danger that awaits if you were to return to Venezuela. Right. And I have a lot of empathy for one to be in that kind of situation. I can't imagine what that fear and danger must be like. Yet at the same time, with the understanding that the consequences could be returning to that environment, wouldn't you do everything you possibly could to prevent that from becoming a reality? Knowing that that was something that could befall you if you were to be deported. You voted with the party that was holding mass deportation signs. I can't at the same time empathize with the potential dangers of your situation and not wonder why that same situation didn't inform how you moved in November. I mean, how do you do that? And then you have to ask yourself, because I'm not sure what conversations were being had behind closed doors, right? So then you have to ask yourself, they want me to vote with the party that was holding the mass deportation signs, despite the fact that it's going to be extremely dangerous if that was in fact to happen for me and for my family. But they told me that it's all going to be okay. You have to ask yourself, how much credibility does Donald Trump have?
Para mí significa mucha angustia.
Suriane Iriarte told me it's been nothing but frustration since the Trump administration revoked her TPS issued in 2023 this weekend.
Nosotros nos sentíamos un poco más protegidos.
We felt protected having TPS. We had a work permit, social security. We could buy a house and more, said Iriarte.
If 300,000 people lose their status on their TPS, many businesses are going to suffer.
At a news conference in Doral, Venezuelan organizations addressed that this community has invested in this city where most Venezuelans came fleeing the dictatorship of Nicolás Maduro. Maduro claimed victory at a presidential election last year, though the U.S. did not recognize his victory.
We have a lot of TPS applicants and holders that have been part of our community, have businesses, are running businesses, are paying taxes, are contributing every day.
Doral Vice Mayor Maureen Porras told me revoking TPS is disheartening.
Our local economy is going to suffer, and our fabric as the city of Doral is going to suffer as well.
Sí, yo tengo TPS 2023. I have TPS from 2023. My only protection, said Henry Carmona. President Trump announced recently that Venezuela agreed to take back its violent criminal migrants nabbed in the U.S., including members of the Tren de Aragua gang. The announcement came right after an agreement between the U.S. envoy Richard Grenell and Venezuela dictator Nicolás Maduro. Although the Trump administration insisted that the visit does not signal U.S. recognition of Maduro's iron-fisted rule, Venezuelans in Doral feel they will pay the price. So now I lose my driver's license, my work permit. I will not be able to feed my family starting in April, said Carmona. Activists allege they will act within the next few days.
We're going to court. We all think we have a case.
And that's what they're saying, that they're going to court. Now, Venezuelans under the other TPS program, which ends in September of this year, they are protected until that day. However, they're all saying that from now on, they're going to work with other communities who are asking not to deport any law-abiding citizens. We are live in Doral. Ivan Taylor, CBS News, Miami.
Now, roughly 1 million people are in the United States on temporary protected status because of civil unrest and natural disasters in their home country. According to the Miami Herald, at least 500,000 Venezuelans are here on TPS, and nearly 350,000 now face possible deportation when their status ends in April. These Venezuelans are trying to rebuild lives in the U.S. under TPS. Trump has created an overwhelming sense of fear and uncertainty. Carlos Carpio, a 50-year-old Venezuelan immigrant living in Chicago, described the emotional toll after news of the TPS ending. There's so much fear over what Trump has been saying and now what he's doing. Since the day Trump became president, I live in fear. Now, again, I can't imagine living under that kind of pressure. The only thing that comes to mind is making each decision with that safety first, with that safety front of mind. It would inform everything that I do. Certainly what administration I want. The fear is compounded by growing confusion over Trump's shifting stance on Venezuela. Axios reported 2 days before Inauguration Day that Trump wanted regime change in Venezuela. Yet in just the third week of his term, Trump is negotiating with Maduro's government, securing the release of 6 American prisoners while also arranging deportation flights to Venezuela. Yeah, so remember that piece, that thing that I said earlier about how much credibility does Donald Trump have? If Trump's gains in Doral and South Florida were built on his hardline stance against Maduro, then what happens now that he's negotiating with the very government his administration reportedly wanted to remove? Ending TPS and deporting Venezuelans back to Maduro's regime forces a question that Republicans haven't had to answer before, whether Trump's Latino support was about lasting political alignment or a reaction to a specific political and economic conditions. An early sign will be whether Venezuelan voters in places like Doral are angry enough at Trump to turn against him. Now, it's funny you should mention that about Trump and the politics of targeting Latinos in this way.
So Trump knew that the moment he brought immigration issue to Americans, especially Americans that want everybody out, that he had them sold. But Trump also knew that he needed Latinos' votes, right? But Trump needed American vote because it's majority. But without Latino, most likely he wouldn't have won. So what did Trump see? Trump saw Haitian migrants as the picture to paint. Because why? Because Black people are easily marginalized, criminalized, and easily to convince people that of whatever, right? And for Latinos, it would give them a peace of mind knowing that it's not going to be their group of people, you know? Especially because Spanish people, Latinos, you would like to distance yourself as much as you can from us. But anyway, story for another day. We're still minority all together on this boat that we're going to be sent back to together. Anyway, but Trump saw that I'm going to use these Haitian migrants as the picture of the type of migrants that I want out of this country. Going from, alleging that they're eating cats and dogs, vandalizing cities, doing all sort of criminal activities in the country to make them look as bad as possible. And the issue is that Haitian migrants are here on the same type of visa as Venezuelan, Cubans, and many other Latinos that are fleeing and seeking asylum and parole from the country for whatever reason, that whatever's happening at their country. But they felt safe. Latinos felt safe for some reason, thinking that with the picture that Trump painted, they wouldn't be affected. Boy, throughout the campaign, it was hashtag Haitian here, Haitian that. And I could swear that the moment that Trump took the office, that the man was going to get in his plane and personally go to Springfield, Ohio, and drag those Haitian out of there and take them back. The way that man ran his campaign based on Haitian, that's what I thought he was going to do. Guess what I keep seeing on my post, my page for you and all? Venezuelan, Cuban, Latinos, hashtag Mexican, all that. Where are my Haitian people at? I'm not trying to bring attention back to you, Haitian. You know, no. But the point of this video is how easy it was for Trump to sell you guys on BS. How did you think you were exception to the rule because Haitian were black? I'm confused as to how you distance yourself from all his campaign with the things that he said about mass deportation and who he was going to deport. Why did you think you were exception to the rule? The migrants. I'm confused. So I would like to have someone explain to me as to why you thought when Trump ran his campaign based on getting rid of the migrant, you did not think it applied to you, Cubans, Venezuelans, or any other Latinos that fell under that category.
In other words, what I'm getting is it was okay that it wasn't based on facts before when other people were targeted. But now we want it to be based on facts. We want it to be based on our legality and the lack of criminality here. But we felt perfectly fine and perfectly safe when that was projected onto other people. During the 2024 campaign, as Trump made the outrageous arguments that TDA was taking over apartment complexes in cities like Aurora and Chicago, many Latino voters, Venezuelans included, continued to support him. For some of them, their focus was the economy. Others believed Democrats to be too soft on socialism. But underlying it all, Latino political strategist Mike Madrid told ProPublica after the election was their belief that they're playing by the rules and they will be rewarded for it. Given Republicans' history, they're allowing themselves to believe that for no good reason. And in that regard, maybe I have to have a little bit of understanding for your situation, because believing that is so patently absurd to any Black American. I mean, well, I won't say to any, because there's a whole other side of YouTube. To most Black Americans that have their eyes and ears open, believing that is just absurd. But maybe you don't have the experience with America that we do. Maybe you haven't been left out and lied to and bamboozled and run amok the way that we have. So this was how you had to learn those lessons, I guess. South Florida Republicans now find themselves caught between loyalty to Trump and the backlash from the Venezuelan community. Jimenez, Diaz-Balart, and Salazar have voiced their opposition, but will they keep pushing against Trump or fall back in line? Can I take bets on that? They lined up already. Trump's move to end TPS suggests he believes his Latino support is locked in, but the betrayal that Venezuelan American voters are feeling may be an issue that causes them to respond by punishing Republicans going forward. Now, that last part is fascinating, speaking to the long-term political math of Trump's moves against the Latino community. it seems like a just cause and effect for this to cause that support in that community to completely collapse. However, I thought literally the exact same thing in November. I couldn't have imagined, based on everything they've said, based on all of the lies, based on all of the projection, based on all of the smears, based on the actual signs, I couldn't have imagined after all of that he could reasonably rely on any level of Latino support. I already thought that. So given how wrong I was before, I have no reason to think that now. And that's why I'm troubled. I want to thank you guys so much for watching the video and send a very special shout out to everybody who attended our last Members Only Live.
Who knows how life would have turned out for me if I would have had a perm.
We were celebrating hitting the 1,000 mark, and we're close to 2,000. So there's going to be a lot more where that came from. And by the way, you guys will enjoy the archive of all my past lives and videos, which is only growing. I'm also going to be rolling out some new emojis, some polls, so you guys can help me determine the direction of the channel. And if you would like to join, there is a link to membership in the description of all the videos. Now, I alluded to this a while back. Did you know that YouTube actually tells me who the most active subs are and members are on my channel? And I gotta send a shout out to y'all, because it's thanks to you guys' engagement that the content has been doing as well as it has. So I know everybody don't want their whole government out there, so I'm gonna split the difference. Shout out to Tanya S, Tyler H, Kev Z, Micah E, and Gloria B. I wouldn't be here without you guys. Also, if you guys haven't checked out my second channel, Way of Waters, I'm going to commence to posting content on there as well and talking to some folks that can hopefully help get my mind right so I can make it through the rest of 2025. We all gonna need it. Yeah, we all gonna need it.